Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is LA-based Japanese American Taryn Mitsunaga, founder of Taryn & Co. and a Pop-Up Party, a one-of-a-kind event planner that go above and beyond for her clients, and during COVID started a company to cater to those who wanted an easy solution to their party decorating needs, from flowers, balloons, backdrops, table settings, and more. Simple menu selection, customization, and you are ready to host a fabulous party in no time. Hi, Taryn, and welcome to Curito Connects.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi.
So, fun fact, I was introduced to Taryn through one of our old Curito Connects guests, Captain Wheeler from episode 52. Today, Taryn would like to dive into the topic of self-love and how it has given her an even deeper meaning and intention to how she and her company impact the world. She truly believes that everyone needs to celebrate themselves in all moments, and especially when life is challenging, and how life is truly a party. I couldn't have said it any better. And for those who know how I love a good event, I agree with Taryn 100%. So without further ado, Taryn, could you please introduce yourself to our audience today and share with us how you started this journey and what events happened that made you realize the importance of self-love?
Thank you, Jen. What an intro. What an intro. So happy to be here and talk about all the things. And that I feel like that's a full loaded question. Like what got me here, what gets us anywhere in life at this point. But I think a lot of different things have gotten me here. Especially in business. I think I always grew up with a business sense. My family has a business, and I always never loved waking up early and doing the 9 to 5. That was just like never a dream of mine. I was always looking at everything and wanting to do it differently and do it my way. And so I kind of was just born in that sense of how I started in life, and in every facet of my life. That's just kind of how I am. So then when it came to what am I going to do in life, the universe and all the things kind of led me to starting events and to doing events and helping people and creating experiences and moments that I've experienced myself with my loved ones. And so I wanted to extend that with not whoever, but with people and others, and to bring that love and fun that I get to experience on the daily. And that's kind of how everything started, if you're talking about my business. And then with COVID and everything, obviously everything was shut down, and we were literally connecting people physically in person. And when you couldn't do that anymore, lots of questions were brought up, but you had to start looking at life differently. And I still wanted to create something for people to gather in some sort of way. And maybe we weren't going to be there and do the big things anymore at that point in time. But I was like, let's create a system that still provides individual households to be able to celebrate in their home, in their inner circle. Again, taking us back to 2020. And that's kind of where a pop-up party started. And what could I do in that moment? What could my team and I create? And so that's when a pop-up party was, in addition, born. And I couldn't have written it myself. I can't write anything that happens in my life. And they're always a good, fun story in the end of it all. But, a lot of things go into creating something and wanting to do something. And I always say I have to follow my heart. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to feel like wanting to do it. So I have to want to do it. And as long as I follow that, it's never steered me in the wrong direction. Even when chaos and catastrophes have happened, I know that whatever I stumbled upon, I was meant to experience and learn and gather something from that. And that is kind of how Taryn & Co. started. And then a pop-up party was birthed, all in one sentence.
in all in one sentence. Awesome. Well, I am going to take you and ask you to, we're going to I like to say rewind because I want to go
Mhm.
a little bit further back
Yeah.
and have you kind of introduce like yourself in terms of like as a Japanese American in LA. You said your family also has a family business. What were your early days like growing up? And were you always in love with parties? Like for instance, I think the reason Catherine introduced us was because of the fact that we both liked events. You do a bigger scale than I do. I do the little like mini workshop versions. But I can tell you, as far for myself, for instance, I think growing up, and you can ask my family, it's like they'll tell you that, oh, yeah, she always loved birthdays. She'll decorate the dining table, when you use like construction paper and you cut it and you create those little like strings,
Yeah.
or like you make the chains, like I just, and holidays are always like fun, right? Because then you had themes and then you can like decorate based on themes and this and that. So I think as way back as I can remember, like even my early days, that's what I like doing. Like it was just always so fun to come up with this stuff.
Yeah, I think the creative part I definitely get from my mom. But I love partying. Like I guess I didn't, when growing up, as far as being a Japanese American in LA, I was into basketball. I was into the church, like the Buddhist church stuff. And even when I was in the church communities, I was always putting dances together and finding creative ways. And then going into high school, I was like ASB secretary as a junior, and then I became president. And I was always just putting together experiences. And yes, I loved colors and themes and all of that stuff. I always just like had a nick for that. But I really just enjoyed the essence of bringing people together. And that is my driving force. On top of, yes, loving all the cute things, all the lights and production, all the themes. I love a good freaking theme. Like, that's so fun. That's like my little girl gets to go play in all the ways that she didn't really get to do when she was growing up. And so, yeah, I mean, that comes out differently. But I can say, looking back, growing up and all that stuff, it was really just, it was instilled in me with my family of being together. And no matter what we're doing, even if we're just in a room in a cabin in Mammoth, like just being together was everything. And creating moments were so, and still are, really important to us. And I just wanted I wanted to create environments for other people that maybe didn't have that with their families or with their friends or in their connections. And I knew like how rich and how beautiful and how memorable that those moments are and were for myself. And that's what carried me through. Might sound cheesy, but that's literally like the heart of why I do things. And then it's just like glitter on top with all the other fun stuff like flowers and a tablescape, and like it really is my little girl getting to have fun at that point. But as far as like the meat and potatoes of it all, it really does stem, I guess, from my family. And I think that being an Asian American family, I think a lot of people resonate with that. And so I just took the good, because we all have good and bad in our families, but I took the good from those memories and those experiences in my family and built on that.
So could you take us through memory lane and describe some of your most memorable moments that you were saying where, growing up in the household that you were growing up in, there were those occasions where you really felt like, oh, like you, that feeling of like gathering and people and just, yeah, through celebration, basically, and how that
Yeah.
made you feel. And did you grow up in a household where it was like three generations? So you had your grandparents, your parents, and what kind of dynamic do you feel that gave you? Because I think nowadays, as families are getting smaller and smaller,
Mm-hmm.
there is less of that kind of gathering, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This hits home in a lot of different ways. I think growing up, it was my grandma. I had one grandma, my dad's mom. I didn't know my mom's mom, but she is and was the matriarch of bringing everyone together. She had 5 kids, and I'm fourth generation. Um, and she really just set the tone, and it wasn't anything fancy or over the top. It was just her buying a roast and making it and inviting everyone over. It was her, growing up in the inner central LA, and her going to like a Jewish deli and buying matzo ball soup and bringing it home and inviting all of us, or buying tuna and creating a sashimi spread and having us have like rice with it, and inviting all of her kids who had kids, which was me and my cousins. And so it was just those simple things, those simple moments. It was every holiday, every birthday. Again, there wasn't anything fancy or over the top about it, maybe a cake, but it was just us being together. And also just seeing like how happy that made my grandma feel was everything. And I will say I have a lot of cousins. There's about, on that side, there's 8 of them, 9 including me, and we're all very close. People think that we're all siblings, but it's because of my grandma, my grandpa, and my aunts and my uncles and my dad and my mom, that they sacrificed a lot to make sure that we kept that family unit strong. And so I can't like talk about specific moments because they weren't over the top. It was just very much like eating dinner and hanging out for hours and talking about whatever show anyone was watching. And as we grew up, and as my cousins and I grew up, at that point we became our own. A lot of us got jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And we, till this day, go out to dinner and celebrate each other and go to concerts. Like we continue, even though like my grandma's 90 something now and our parents are getting older, my cousins and I create that. And if you take off the first layer, it's because we crave that connection that we grew up with. And so even as 30, 40 something, 20 something year old adults, right, we make effort. Like I have 2 dinners this week and they're both my cousin's stuff, and we're just getting together because it's been like a couple weeks. And those moments, that connection, that's what fuels me. And I know that's not everyone has that, and so we understand how precious that is. But that's what I get to go and take that energy that I get to cultivate and experience, and I get to go take that and put that in the world through events. And so I don't know if I can even answer your question, but those are the moments. That's the heart and soul of my memories.
I love that. And I feel like I wanted to ask, based on what you just expressed and described there, do you think that even now within the cousin generation, so like who takes initiative to make sure? Is it you, like, or is it just everyone's pretty
It's a little
equal
bit
in
of
being
everyone.
like, hey, like, like
Yeah.
it's been a while, like I don't want to say it's like, who's the one who like craves it more, or that like wants to make sure, like, because there's always going to be that one player who like like, kind of like your grandma did that, right? She
Mm-hmm.
was the one who like made sure that like all the kids got together, then the cousins got
Mm-hmm.
together, and that the whole family unit, and as we all know, people are complicated and relationships are
Mm-hmm.
complicated. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
always perfect.
No,
And so
not at all.
kudos to your grandma for being able to, to do that, and to make sure that, whatever feud you guys have, like, leave it out
Mm-hmm.
the door. We're in here to celebrate this occasion, or just to gather, and setting precedents for that kind of energy to not trickle down to the next generation. Right. So I don't know if does this make sense? Like I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like
Mm-hmm.
how has it been for your family from the generation above you to your current generation, and to continue it with, like you said, your brother just had a kid, recently, to the
Yeah.
next?
Yeah.
That is not easy, like
It is
it's very
not.
not easy. I would love for you to share that, because I think, gosh, I mean, I don't want to go in too much into my own version of what you're
Mm-hmm.
just saying, but like, unfortunately for me, like, on one side of my family,
Yeah.
our cousins are not that close
Yeah.
because of,
Yep.
obviously, like, family feud stuff, right? And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, because
Mm-hmm.
we did have exactly what you said growing up. We,
Mm-hmm.
actually all lived in the same building, and we were very close because we were all so close in age.
Yeah.
But
But
then
etc.
something
Yeah.
happens, and
The
there's the
blame.
he said, she said, and emotions, and
Yeah.
this and that, and oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. So So I
Yeah.
think you're already at fourth, so you're like the next generation's fifth generation. So
Yeah.
like my goodness, that's amazing.
It's amazing, but it's not to say that there wasn't sacrifice. There was, and I think we were just talking about this, like my brothers and I, in a very closed circle, safe space, and we were talking about, dynamic shifting and the importance of self, and we recognize so much that our parents sacrificed in their relationships and their, whatever the case may be. And those are things that we don't want to sacrifice, but then we also understand and we value these relationships in family that generations before have sacrificed and put aside things because, again, we've seen it all. We're not privy to, I've seen it all, and it hasn't all been perfect, not by any means. There's a lot of drama with a lot of people, like you said. And when money gets involved, it can get very, very sticky. And so there's one rule that I know my grandma has maybe not said it to us, but we just understand that you just don't let that get in the way, because money comes and goes, but family is there. But you also have to cultivate it, and there's sometimes you just have to bite the freaking bullet, and it's not about being right or wrong, and it's about the relationships and history. But then I'm finding that's hard to do in the healing process as well. Like, honestly, therapy, healing, generational trauma, all this stuff comes into play. And you're like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I balance it all? And how do I also continue where my heart is, which it is with my family, and wanting to create that for my nephew, in the next generations without losing ourselves. I don't think that hasn't happened. I will say that I will speak for my parents and my aunts and uncles because we've been the outsider, but they've sacrificed so much of their life. But because they have, now their kids have this unbound relationship and friendship and care that, to me, is just really important, and you don't see it every day. And so to go and talk about my grandma being the patriarch, who is the next person, I will say, not to toot my own horn because it's an exhausting piece of the puzzle, but I am probably the glue to it. But I will say that everyone shows up. As far as my cousins, the guys will hang out for the Laker game, and they'll invite the girls, and the girls will do birthday dinners and make sure that the guys come. And we actually like each other too. Like, it just so happens we actually like each other, and we want to spend time with each other. And I don't know if it's luck. I don't know what it is. It's just understanding, or like the unspoken rule of, like, you just love family. But even through all the healing and understanding of and getting your voice and self-love, I still find myself coming back to wanting to hang out with them and wanting to be with them without losing myself. And it's not an easy feat. It is very complex. It's exhausting. Like, I'm literally so parched just speaking about it because it's so layered. There's no one answer, and there's no, solution to fix it all. But I will say, hindsight is 2020. You get to learn from generations before, and you just don't let money get in the way of things, especially on the business front, specifically family business. And it's not easy. It's just not easy. But I think it's worth it. It's worth it if you don't lose yourself through it. And so TBD asked me in like 15 years, but I'm trying to find my footing in it all. And I can't even believe we're talking about this because it's like, it's yeah, it's just interesting to speak to someone else that feels it. And it's just very interesting. I can't even right now.
I feel like you're in the process of processing this current conversation that we're recording live, because I think you did not realize the twist that this was going to take.
Not even.
Thank you for sharing and being open about it. Which actually, you mentioned this a few times in your description earlier, which I will like to segue into. And again, as you feel comfortable, however much you would like to share, You mentioned generational trauma quite a few times there in the
Yeah.
conversation. And I love that you said that, because I also, and this is actually another reason why we connected, because we had talked about it previously. I would
Mhm.
love if you could kind of dig a little bit in there to share with us what that means for you, in terms of, it is very complex. It's more complex than, say, I'm an onion and I'm peeling my layers. It's like, because there is that part of the condition that you were raised in, the family that you were raised in, the environment that you are raised in, and then the, like, okay, well, who am I, amidst all of this, and
Mhm.
who is the person that I want to be, um but still connected to my roots, still connected to the relationships, but I don't necessarily agree with X, Y, and Z things that I
Mhm.
was brought up with, or told or taught. I would like to do, ABC,
Mhm.
and, how do I make sure that all of them respect me for that and understand? Because, like you said earlier, when you're very connected and very tight with your family, they affect you.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of healing, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of rediscovery, a lot
Mhm.
of, regrounding.
Mhm.
And I don't know if how you would like to answer this, but maybe I could lead you with something like, at what point in your life, whether it was like high school or college or
Mhm.
post college,
Mhm.
did you realize that something was kind of off for you, that kind of led you to
Yeah.
this healing process and discovering, like, oh, this is why, right? Like, oh, these like generational traumas is why.
Yeah.
And it's and I want it, I mean, I'm not trying to, this is not a negative thing,
No,
I
it's
would
not.
love more people to understand that, like, it's real and you're not alone in this process. And if anything, you're sharing, and maybe I can chime in a little bit with a little of my sharing, but it's like, it's so,
It's so much.
like, liberating, like, once you figure it out, and you're like, "Oh, why didn't anyone tell me this before?" And it's always like, "Well, you weren't really it wasn't really the right timing. You had to kind of go through your own journey and figure
Yeah.
it out, and once you
Mhm.
figure it out, then it just." But yeah, it's a process.
It's a process. I'm learning again yeah, it's a lifelong process. I think that part I'm accepting still, that it's a lifelong process. To answer your question, I think I woke up post college. No, I know I woke up. It was post college in my late 20s. And it just, things weren't working in my personal life. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have my own life. I had that desire. But I didn't know how that was going to work when I was so close to my family and so intertwined with that. And then the universe works harder than we think. And I fell into an opportunity to work with a coach to work on, I thought, getting my soulmate and finding, my partner in life. And then I ended up finding myself through it all and realized, like, all the chains and all the weights that I was carrying through family generations. And I just didn't even know, because on the other end, I love my family. I was one of the lucky ones that also really felt that love and respected the sacrifice and respected all the things through it. But it doesn't mean it wasn't easy. And then waking up to it again and again in a new way, oh, it's like heartbreaking. It's destructive. It's like you feel like the world's crumbling down. But then once it all crumbled down and I started to see things how I wanted it to be, then I just got in the state of like me. And for some that might sound selfish, but when you're so stuck in the family dynamics and being in an Asian, I'm Japanese, but I know other Asian cultures, it's still the same. It's not feeling your feelings, not allowing to, picking yourself up, being a problem solver, figuring it out without the feelings in between. It's all that stuff. And it's a process to be angry, resentment, sad, like all of that stuff. Like read it in the dictionary or on an Instagram feed. You can find it nowadays of like the process of feelings and allowing yourself to feel. And so, but I just got really clear with therapy and coaching about who Taryn was and how I realized I didn't even have an identity of who I was. I was just following what generations before did. And it was a double-edged sword. And I said that a few times because it was like I wanted to, but then also I realized I wasn't having the life that I really wanted. And so I had to like put a stake in the ground and just put me first. And I really haven't looked back. And it's as simple as, does this serve me? And I have to put my family on the back burner. I can't have them drive the car of my life. And it's hard and it's heartbreaking at times. And some people don't get it. But I think if you just lead with love, like you can't lose. And so as complex as it can be and layered it can be, like you just have to do what's right for you and put everyone else on the sides, because the more you continue to take on and weigh down and all this stuff, like you're not going to get what you ultimately want. And I had to go figure that out. What did Taryn want? Like, oh, I can make a choice. I can actually decide what I want. Like that was like a whole different, I can decide who I am again and again, and it can change. Like for me, that was so liberating. And as soon as I got that self-love piece, like I haven't looked back. Doesn't mean I haven't been brought down to the depths of resentment or problems or life, but my anchor is myself now, despite whatever generational things come knocking on my door with.
Could you, I mean, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, just a simple example, like, because you illustrated like kind of like the process and how, but just could you give us some examples of like what that looked like for you in terms of like, okay, family, just like, shh, I'm just going to go do my thing. I don't care what your commentary will be, but I'm going to go do my thing, and then like having to create that space for that, and it might have taken you 10 times before you got to that point where you're like, I don't care anymore. But like the first time would have been like maybe you crying in your car and thinking like, oh my God, like,
So many
the family
tears.
did yeah. So
Oh.
can we give some like concrete examples for
So I'll
to,
just explain. I'll just kind of round it out by, when I first started to realize this, and I had support too, I wasn't doing this alone. I wouldn't advise to do this alone. I think it's possible, but I think having support, whether it's a coach or going to therapy, is really important for you to be able to go there to the depths of your soul, because you're going to be held. I think it's really difficult in the beginning to go that deep within yourself. And so I will preface this by saying I advise having therapy or a coach to not literally hold you, but hold you emotionally, so you can allow yourself to go there. And when I first started to realize all of this, I actually had to just stop seeing my family for a bit. They didn't even know it was happening, and I didn't need to explain it. That wasn't me needing to explain it. I just figured it out. I said I was busy. I was going on trips. I had events. I created that space for my mental health. And it was a little while. And I would, as long as my cup was filled, I learned how to fill my cup up. Then I would go and have dinner with them. But I would just for a short amount of time. I call it like family camp. Like you can't do sleepover camp all the time, but you can do like day camps. So I would like day camp with the family, and I would have dinner. And if mom and dad listens, like this is what I was doing like 5 or 6 years ago. But like I had to distance myself because I needed to protect my emotions, my anger, my sadness, my disappointment. I needed that for myself, and I deserve that. So even though all my family's in LA and, you know, my brothers lived with me for a while, I had to create that space for myself and protect that in the very beginning. I would say the first year was tough. You know, I remember every year for Christmas, my mom hosts Christmas Eve, and she's cooking and we're helping and all the things. And I love that I'm sharing this on a podcast. It's so great. This is growth, people. Sharing is growth. Anyway, so there was this one, it was like right when I was doing the really deep healing stuff and realizing all these things, but holidays were holidays and you still had to show up. And we were hosting Christmas Eve. And I was just so angry at like every little thing. Like it was really, and I'm a pretty good poker face. I'm in the business of an industry. I can hold it together. But I was just so fragile and I hadn't built up I was exhausted. It was all the things on top of life happening and events and business. But I remember like just going to the bathroom and just crying because every little thing, it didn't matter if it was like, oh, hi, Taryn, how are you? I literally was like, I don't know if you can cuss, but I was like, F you. Like in my inside, I just wanted to be like, F you. Like, don't effing talk to me.
Or just fuck off.
Okay.
You're like, please fuck off. Please fuck off. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to my timeout. I'm going to my timeout corner. Just leave me alone.
Not even a timeout corner. Like I'm going into my sanctuary of Taryn that I realized I could have for myself. And it didn't matter. Like it was even like my little cousins, girls who are angels and like perfect human beings. But even them, I was like, oh my God, you're going to be ruined. Like any little thing was just so triggering, you know, like I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to them so they understand their love. Like, oh man, all the things. It could even have been my aunt giving me a gift. And I was like, what the fuck does a gift mean? Like, what the, you know? And I was just like so fragile because you are in this process. And I had to go into the bathroom and just cry. And that's also, I didn't really cry before. I mean, I would every, like in a really sad movie, but I never allowed Taryn to cry and go there. So when I learned that I could actually do that and that it's good for me, I allowed myself in that moment during that one Christmas Eve. And I just allowed myself to cry for a few minutes. I shut the door and then I got myself together and, you know, I put a brave face on, but I left pretty early. I didn't stay. But I showed up. I didn't rough the waters. There was no need for me to like be outwardly about it. And why was I sharing this? Oh, that was like the first. Why am I sharing the depths of my soul? Because that was like a monumental point in my life where it was, and thank God we can laugh about it now, but like it was really real. It felt like the world was coming in and the walls were coming in on me. And then I remember I always have my little cousins stay with me during the holidays. And it was just a really hard couple of days because I couldn't not go to Christmas, and maybe I could have not, but again, I love my family and I still go hard for them. And I think it's important for me to show up. So I did to some capacity. And then at that point, I was able to, once I've like let all the steam out and like that first run of just like rawness of self, then you start building yourself up. And then I was able to see my family when I was feeling good. But again, I had to create my standards and what that looked like for me before I could even go and show up. Because looking back on all the years, I was always showing up, even though I was physically there. I wasn't emotionally or mentally there. I was just like there to be there and just because I had to. And then I was like, oh, I can be there present and like all the things. And like you can tell like my energy shifted completely. And I was able to go and see family again. And then sometimes I can't. And I still have to be okay with that as well. And it's a revolving door of just stuff that, again, like I said, I'm still learning, but that was like the beginning of it. And it gets really, really messy. Mm-hmm. And I also like things pretty, and I like things finished, and I like things with a meaning. and I run an event business. But in that process, there's none of that going into it. Like none. None. And you just have to meet yourself wherever you're at. And learning how to do that was pivotal and life-changing. Did I answer the question?
Yes, and beyond,
Yeah.
you just surrendered. You surrendered.
Mm-hmm. And
You
so,
surrendered to it.
yeah, I mean, again, the family stuff, generational stuff, that could be like a novel. But
And
if you,
maybe you will write one
maybe,
day.
maybe,
Well,
maybe.
I think when you were talking about the crying over Christmas in the bathroom and letting yourself do that, it really it struck like when you were talking about that, something came to my mind, which was when you said, I didn't know I could cry like that,
Mhm.
and that made me think to want to ask, like, were you told not to cry growing up? It's like girls, pretty girls don't cry, or I think there's all these different commentaries on the crying aspect of kids growing up. It's like it's like when you're crying and then they don't comfort you, they don't say like, just let it out, it's okay, let it out, it'll be fine, versus like, suck it back in, like, no crying, like, be quiet. So because it almost felt like you were actually tapping into an emotion that you didn't know was really there,
Mhm.
right? Like when you said you just went in the bathroom and you just cried, and for all the different trigger points, not knowing why, but kind of knowing why, because you're acknowledging how you felt
Mhm.
about all those different things, from the present your aunt gave to the little girls coming to say hello to you, just all these different things triggering you, kind
Yeah.
of like pistols at you, and then you're just like, why is this thing triggering me? And then like, I just feel this way, and you're crying. And you're
Yeah.
like, these are real emotions, right? And then there's a sense of maybe guilt. There's a sense of like, like, whatever words, verbs, adjectives you want to
Mhm.
throw in to the
Yeah.
bag. And to really just be like, it's okay. Like it's okay to feel these things, because like you were saying earlier, in Asian households,
Mhm.
for our generation,
Mhm.
it's like we weren't really taught or told to speak our emotions or tap into it. You just suck it
Yeah.
up.
Dude. You just are, it's not even talked about, it's
It's
like,
not talking about.
yeah, I mean, when you ask me, are there moments, can I go back and like think about someone reprimanding me to cry or not cry? No, it wasn't that. It was more of like the examples that were set, that you just read the room and you're like, fucking got it, cool. And you're four and you're like, all right, cool, just figure it out, because it wasn't talked about. And I love my mom and dad, and I'm very grateful for them for all the things, but it's cultural. It's that they didn't even allow themselves, so it wasn't it was a loving household. I felt loved to some extent. Did I feel seen? No. But again, they were just figuring out life with three kids and all the things,
Yeah,
family things that they
yeah,
never ever broke away from. And so,
exactly.
again, when that Christmas Eve happened, I was already very aware of why things were happening, and it was like kind of like homework for me. Like if I felt like anger was coming or crying was coming, I needed to honor it. And so I was very hyper aware of why I was like, oh my God, my little cousin's girls, like I have to talk to them like with so much love so they feel love. Like I was very aware because I was figuring it out. Um, but yeah, it's important. And I just, again, it wasn't anything that happened. And I would say society, of course. I mean, Jesus Christ, like so many things to say about society. But yeah, I mean, I just figured it out. It was just the energy, it was the example that was set. Um, and yeah, like the feminine emotions were always played down, and they were never powerful. They were never highlighted in a strong and powerful, empowering sense. That for sure, for fact, wasn't happening. And I think until
Wow.
maybe the last 5 years, it's just coming to the surface, which is a beautiful thing. I spoke to this Gen Z gal and girl, and I was like, oh my God, you have it so good. Like you get to talk about this stuff. Like, it's just like mainstream. Like, do you understand like how difficult it was? Like, even 5 to 7 years ago, like talking about therapy, getting a coach, like, you know, doing moon ceremonies, that was like all very Phoebe and Friends. Like, it was just so out of pocket and not talked about and shunned until like recently, which I think is incredible. But yeah, growing up, absolutely it wasn't there. But
Oh,
I don't
that's
like to
so
blame, right? I'm like not someone to ever blame. That's not how I was raised, and I am grateful for that. But again, it's taking accountability for your place on this earth and knowing better than before. And so going back to the generational stuff, I also feel like there is a time to blame. There is a time to let it all out and know the source. But at the same time, they didn't know. And so if they didn't know, how can you blame them? How can you blame
exactly.
yourself if you didn't know? Like, you only know when you
Exactly.
know. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as hard and as difficult as all of this stuff is to talk about and to feel and to accept and to realize, you just have to love yourself through it. I mean, and that will just be your saving grace through all of the chaos and all of it that sometimes you can't even
Yeah,
explain in a podcast. Like, it's just, there's so much.
I know. So much, so much. We might have to start our own just to narrow down on the subject matter.
Yeah.
So okay, I want to. I feel like I just threw you on a whole other tangent, which I love. Thank you, but
Yeah.
I want to bring us back to. I'm going to bring us back to the original topic, which you picked about self love and implementing it in the work you do. So, with maybe just in the last few minutes here, can
Yeah.
you just talk about actually, I mean, it actually kind of works well because so everything you just described about yourself and what you've gone through and explored and developed for your own healing, how do you apply that, in terms of, like you said, self-love, super important, celebration of
Mhm.
you, celebration of those you love.
Mhm.
How do you bring that essence to your work, right? And the clients you work with? And
Yeah.
so if you could just share with us a little bit about that, how that is such an integral part of what you share,
Mhm.
compare not I mean, I'm not trying to compare to other in the industry, but just, I mean, events is just the word event in itself is big, right? It's like there's so many different types of events and there's
Mhm.
different ways of doing events. But for you, it's such an integral thing with your DNA, right? Of who
Mhm.
you are and
Yeah.
what it means to you to have a celebration, to celebrate milestones, to celebrate gatherings. It could be sad celebrations, happy celebrations,
Mhm.
but just the essence of human gathering, right?
Yeah.
So if you could just share with us a little bit about that.
So to answer your question, I think it's a great segue to talk about, and it's an integral piece in celebrating because just like I was talking about crying in the bathroom on Christmas Eve, the next day when I got myself back together and I had a little bit more energy, I celebrated myself. I did a little solo dance party. I was just like, "Oh my gosh, Taryn, like you went there. You allowed yourself. You were hyper aware of what was going on. You were able to understand it. You allowed yourself. You took yourself away from a setting that was uncomfortable for you, and you gave yourself and you made yourself important in that moment." And so celebrations is also a very, very big part in the healing and in life. And I happen to love it so much. I have a business on it. And so when I understood the self-love and that layer and that deepening, I was like, holy crap, does it give me another reason to to set up for my clients. I work very closely with very high end clients and celebrities in Hollywood, and it's not an easy life. It looks very pretty, but there is a lot going on. um, it's a lot to keep up with. It's easy to lose yourself, and when you're dealing with people like that who are in that constant go go go, you just see so many things. You just start to see so many things. And not that I was going to go in there and be the fixer, because that's not a good way either. But it's just to create a safe space for them to be. And even though we were talking about like numbers and what flowers and color palettes and the production pieces, I also asked them how they were doing. And it was just a simple, how are you? And sometimes I would just get the whole enchilada. I would just get everything that would be going on, and one thing that we pride ourselves in Taryn & Co. and in a pop-up party as well is our integrity piece. What is said and expressed and what we see sometimes is a safe space. We don't speak of it. We protect them because that's just the respectable thing to do, not to broadcast the moments that, we even have to ourselves. And, celebrations is just another way to heal. It's another way to invite the people that you love when they're going through a tough time. There's been countless events that my clients, because they throw an incredible party for their friend because they're going through a tough time and they just want them to smile and have a night to dance. I think people have a lot of comments and opinions on it, but if it comes from a good place and the intention is there, I'm like, let's go for it. Like why even hold back, And everyone's going through something, whether you're aware of it or not. And so knowing that and knowing everything that I personally have been through, it drives me to really, really create the safe space in our services, but then also to bring that energy into the event. And like, people don't even know it's happening. Not that like I'm some fairy, but like truly we do take the time. It is important for Taryn & Co. and a pop-up party. We talk to our staff. We make sure that they're level-headed and good and happy and want to be there because they're setting the tone for the exchanges that are happening. And people deserve to celebrate. Like, we've gone through a pandemic. We're, post-pandemic now. We're just like 2023, whatever that is now. And everyone deserves a little bit of fun.
I love it.
And that's celebration.
I want to party with you. Yeah. I guess I'll have to come to LA now. No, actually, you can come here. Can we do something here?
I know. Fly me out. Let's do it. If you know people, we'll throw it.
So, okay, so we're running short on time, and I want to conclude with my usual questions for my guests. So, there are 3 questions. Do you want me to list them one by one, or can I go 3 and you just answer as I tell you?
Yeah, do 3.
So, what keeps you grounded? What keeps you grounded is one. What resources has helped you on your healing journey and that you would recommend to others, maybe to your staff? So books, podcasts, your coaches, etc. Like that you felt really resonate with you and you would like highly recommend whenever you meet people who are going through something, or even it could even be a party book or, how to celebrate you kind of thing. Actually, that should be a book you write down the line. The third one is what would you tell your younger self what you know now? Or another way to put it is, kind of like those who are listening to this particular episode and resonate with your storyline, regardless of which angle they resonate with, but what would you tell them, as a 2 cent? So those are the 3 questions.
One's going to get lost, but we'll see where we end up.
What keeps you grounded?
I would say what keeps me grounded is I call it Taryn time. No matter how busy I get, no matter what's going on, what tragedy, what disaster, what hottest celeb is calling, it doesn't matter. It's like, make sure I give myself that time to ground, to rest, to rejuvenate so I can go and show up and hold that space for others in the world that need it. And I do that by sometimes just hopping in the shower and washing the day away. I can do that easily by meditations that I've looked up on YouTube, or again, I've gotten and seeked out coaches. One of my favorite coaches is Lucy Shahjahan, and she's an incredible Find Your Soulmate, aka Find Yourself. She really kickstarted my healing journey into so much more than a soulmate. She helped me get my life back. She helped me realize and give me a different perspective in life. I didn't even know that could be possible, that you could have a different perspective. For all astrology stuff, go to Catherine Whaler. Love her. She's just an incredible being. She's fun. And she throws it down in the astrology and even human design sense. So those are my favorite two that I could say. And then go to therapy, like invest in yourself. That's the number one thing I can say. If you invest in yourself, and it may be a little bit weary in the beginning, like I'm doing that for me, but you'll get it back tenfold. So invest in yourself. Find someone that you resonate with. If it's not those two people, it's not a friend's coach, whatever. Find someone that speaks to you in a way that clicks for you, and then go and invest in yourself. And then my 2 cents into the world. I mean, as simple as like, just keep swimming, like just keep going, and also know that you're worthy of having the things that you want. Know you're worthy of having the things that you want, whatever it is, and really believe that you deserve them and you will have them. Because if you don't believe, then there's no one else that is going to help you or get you there. So you have to believe.
That's so beautiful.
And then, yeah.
So true. So true.
That's
Thank
it.
you so much for sharing all that.
I can't believe we went into the generational.
I'm so excited that we did. I loved it. I loved it so much. And it's I don't have many guests who have kind of tapped into that. So I'm very grateful you shared. And, as Asian Americans, sister to sister here, like I'm so appreciative that you shared that. And hopefully, Curito Connects can have more of those conversations going forward as well. So thank you so much. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to our conversation before we say farewell, but I will tell the guests that I'm putting all the links that you refer to in the conversation, including your site and Instagram, social, the Lucy and Catherine's websites as well, so people can reach out to them and to you if they want to throw a party in LA or anywhere stateside, to reach out. And what else? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe something will happen down the line too. Who knows what the future holds? But yeah, thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.